Long ago, before clocks ruled the day and before promises were written on paper, there was a kingdom where words still carried weight. A place where a single sentence, once spoken, could change a life forever. At the edge of this kingdom stood an ancient forest, quiet and watchful, filled with trees older than memory. Deep within that forest rested a stone well, dark and silent, as if it had been listening to the world for centuries. This is where our story begins. The kingdom was ruled by a wise king, and he had a daughter whose beauty was spoken of far beyond the palace walls. Yet beauty, as many stories quietly remind us, does not always arrive with patience or humility. The young princess had been raised with comfort, surrounded by fine things, and rarely told no. Among all her treasures, one object mattered more than the rest, a golden ball, polished smooth by time and play. Each afternoon, she would wander into the forest, tossing the ball into the air and catching it again, laughing as though nothing in the world could ever fall beyond her reach. But stories never begin when everything is perfect. They begin at the moment something is lost. Before we continue, take a moment to get comfortable. If you enjoy gentle storytelling like this, stories meant to help you unwind and drift toward sleep, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these quiet stories alive and brings you more peaceful nights filled with imagination and calm. Now, return with me to the forest, to the well, and to the moment when a single mistake set an old promise in motion. Because sometimes, the smallest choices echo the longest. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered softly through the leaves, the princess played beside the old stone well as she had many times before. She tossed her golden ball high into the air, watching it spin and gleam like captured sunlight. But this time, her hands missed. The ball struck the edge of the well and vanished into the darkness below. The princess rushed forward, peering into the depths, but the water was too deep and too dark. The ball was gone. For the first time that day, silence replaced laughter, and tears followed soon after. She sat beside the well, feeling smaller than she ever had before. Then, a voice broke the stillness. "Why do you cry, princess?" She looked around in surprise and saw a frog sitting near the water's edge. His skin was green and damp, his eyes wide and unblinking. Startled, but desperate, she explained what had happened. The frog listened patiently before speaking again. "I can retrieve your golden ball," he said calmly, "but only if you promise me something in return." The princess, eager and certain she would never see him again, agreed without hesitation. The frog asked for companionship, for a place beside her at meals, and for a space near her pillow at night. She promised. Moments later, the frog disappeared beneath the water and returned with the golden ball resting safely between his jaws. The princess snatched it with relief and ran back toward the palace, leaving the frog behind. Promises, she believed, could be forgotten when they were inconvenient. That evening, as she dined with the king, a gentle knock echoed through the hall. The frog had come to collect what was owed. The king, hearing the story, spoke firmly. A promise made must be honored. Reluctantly, the princess allowed the frog to sit beside her, to share her table, and eventually to follow her to her room. Her discomfort grew with every step. When the frog asked to rest near her pillow, anger overcame her patience. She acted without thought, and in that moment, the spell that bound the frog shattered. Light filled the room. Where the frog had been, a young prince now stood, freed from a curse placed upon him long ago. The princess, stunned and ashamed, realized that the true test had never been about affection or fear, but about keeping one's word even when it is difficult. Over time, respect replaced resentment, and understanding grew into something deeper. And so, the story turned not on magic alone, but on growth. The princess had always believed that the world responded to her simply because she existed within it. From her earliest memory, doors had opened before she touched them. Voices softened when she entered a room. Smiles appeared not as reactions, but as habits. Even silence seemed to rearrange itself around her, making space where she walked. It was not cruelty that shaped her, it was certainty. Certainty that things would remain as they were. Certainty that what left her hands would always return. Certainty that discomfort was temporary, and inconvenience negotiable. So when she walked toward the forest that afternoon, golden ball resting easily in her palm, she carried no awareness of fragility. The path felt familiar, almost invisible beneath her feet. She did not think of the well as ancient or deep. It was simply there, as it had always been. The ball rose and fell in a rhythm she trusted. Up. Down. Up again. Each toss confirmed the quiet belief that nothing truly disappeared. Until it did. The sound the ball made when it struck the stone edge was sharp, final, and unfamiliar. It echoed once, then vanished, swallowed by the well's darkness. The princess stood frozen, staring at the empty space where certainty had just been broken. At first, she waited. Not because she believed the ball would return, but because her mind refused to accept absence. She leaned forward, peering into the well, expecting reflection, resistance, anything. There was only depth. The realization came slowly, like cold water seeping into fabric. Her chest tightened. Not with panic, but with something quieter, confusion. Loss was not part of her internal language. She sat down beside the well, fingers gripping the edge of her dress, and cried not because the ball was gone, but because something else had taken its place, uncertainty. When the voice spoke, it startled her not because it was strange, but because it arrived without permission. "Why do you weep, princess?" She turned sharply, heart racing, already irritated by the intrusion. Then she saw the frog. Her first thought was not fear. It was offense. That something so ordinary, so unremarkable, had noticed her at all. She explained the loss quickly, impatiently, expecting sympathy to serve as solution. When the frog listened instead of reacting, it unsettled her. Listening required presence. Presence demanded time. And time was something she had never learned to give. When the frog spoke of exchange of promises, of closeness, of shared space, she agreed too quickly, already planning to forget. In her mind, words spoken under distress were flexible, adjustable, less real. She did not consider the frog's stillness. She did not notice how carefully he spoke. She only wanted her certainty back. When the golden ball returned to her hands, relief erased reflection. She ran, not because she feared the frog, but because staying would have required acknowledgement. That night, inside the palace, surrounded by stone and light and familiar echoes, she convinced herself the forest had been a momentary disturbance. She ate, spoke, smiled, and tried not to think. But the knock returned. Soft. Patient. Unyielding. As the frog stood before her again, something inside her recoiled not from disgust, but from recognition. The promise, now real, stood where avoidance had failed. When her father spoke of honor and words, she felt exposed. Not accused, but seen. For the first time, her discomfort was not negotiable. She complied outwardly, but inwardly, resistance grew. Every shared moment felt like intrusion. Every step beside the frog felt like erosion of the self she believed fixed. By the time she reached her chamber, her thoughts were no longer coherent. They spiraled, driven by exhaustion, confusion, and a growing fear that control was slipping away. The moment passed before she understood it. Silence followed. Then light. When the prince stood before her, freed from form and curse, she did not feel triumph. She felt stillness. A pause deep enough to hear herself clearly. He did not thank her. He did not accuse her. He simply existed. And that was what changed everything. In the days that followed, the princess found herself watching rather than acting. She noticed pauses in conversation. Reflections in mirrors she had once ignored. The difference between being admired and being understood. She realized, slowly and painfully, that the world had never responded to her because she existed. It responded because she had never been challenged. The frog had not been a test of affection. He had been a test of awareness. And she had failed before she learned how to listen. Growth did not arrive as regret. It arrived as humility. She spoke less. Asked more. When she made promises, she felt their weight settle into her chest before leaving her lips. The prince remained patient, not waiting for love, but for alignment. And the princess, for the first time, began to meet herself without certainty. This was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of her becoming. The palace was quiet that night, but something within its walls had changed. The princess sat awake long after the candles had dimmed, replaying the events of the day in her mind. For the first time, she understood that promises were not meant to be convenient. They were meant to be kept, especially when doing so required humility. The prince, now free, spoke gently of his years under the spell, of waiting not for perfection, but for someone willing to see beyond appearance and discomfort. Their bond did not form instantly, nor did it need to. True connection, like true change, grows slowly. In the days that followed, the kingdom noticed the difference. The princess listened more. She spoke less quickly. And when she gave her word, she meant it. In time, the prince returned to his own land, and the two promised to meet again not out of obligation, but out of choice. Some stories end with crowns and celebrations. This one ends with something quieter. A lesson carried forward. And now, as this story settles into silence, let the weight of the day fade away. Let your thoughts slow, your breathing soften, and your mind rest. Thank you for spending this time with the story. Sleep well. Good night.